All right, thanks, JP. You're a bit shorter than me.
A lot.
So what I'm going to talk about is the future of social media. What does that look like? Well, it depends on the expectations of prospective students, the landscape of social media in Canadian universities, and then I'm going to tell you how we're going to bring it in. How is that going to integrate into where we're going as a university on social media? So what JP mentioned, this survey. So in 2013, they did a survey of 2,000 prospective students going into university. And what they found is people are relying more and more on social media. So almost half of students see social media as a reliable source of information. So that's going to change our content. And where is that content going to be? Well, it's going to be on a variety of platforms because as this graph shows, you may or may not be able to see it, but over every year, people are using different platforms. In the most recent year, we saw people go from more mature platforms like Facebook and Twitter that JP talked about to emerging platforms who kind of came out of nowhere, stuff like Vine, stuff like Instagram, Snapchat. So people are using those, and the trend we're noticing is they're using them because shorter attention spans. So lots of focus on images, short videos, and video chatting. The challenge in that for us is to cut through this clutter because there's all these platforms, and what we need to do is not spread ourselves thin and still convey a message even with these shorter attention spans. Now, the landscape I was referring to, Canadian universities, what do we see? Well, we see out of the Canadian universities, there's a 30% at the top that are considered very active. We are one of them. Now, what they do to be active is they connect with different user groups on campus. And the idea is that we're co-creating a product, okay? So students, staff, services, it's not just one person saying, this is your Laurentian experience. The experience is what everyone's saying, and what we want to do with that is harness it, coordinate it, and leverage brand ambassadors that we have, people who are saying good things about Laurentian. How can we take that and get the most reach out of it or get the most impact on our various channels? And lastly, this is a generation, these students that are coming in, they're more skeptical about traditional marketing tactics. So that speaks to the importance of having more than one voice. It's not just the corporate Laurentian University saying, come here. We're hearing it from different voices, whether it's students, faculty. So I'm going to touch on that, on how we're harnessing this landscape shift and the changing expectations. So what we're doing at Laurentian is we're supporting everyone on campus who's on social media. How do we do that? Well, I just came up with this guide that provides guidelines and kind of gives you some rules so you don't get in trouble on social media, but also you're kind of incorporating some tips and best practices. So I've made this available, but it goes hand in hand with these discussions I have quarterly with people who run various accounts around the university. And I'm looking towards the fall where I'm going to be able to have these kinds of discussions with faculty as well, because they're a huge part of it, and we want to help them promote their own research, events that they're involved in. Also, we want to mobilize our ambassadors. So we have student bloggers, right? And these guys provide great perspective into, okay, what's the experience like really being a Laurentian student? So one of our requirements now is having a Twitter account or having an Instagram account. So you want to blog for us? Well, we really want you to promote it, and we really want you to ask questions, answer questions on social media about your blogs, about the student experience. So being a blogger for us is no longer just the blog, once a month. It's really that integrated approach. And, I'm building this team of bloggers, and they've been great in reaching out and keeping abreast of what's happening at the university. And, we trust them to speak about the Laurentian experience. And same goes with other properties. I'm going to give the example of Voyageurs. Some of these athletes coming in, they're from the generation where they're looking up to guys like LeBron James, like Roberto Luongo, who are just as good on social media as they are on the playing field. So for these athletes, I was talking with Brian Carruthers from athletics, and we're really looking forward to incorporating that into the orientation piece for the Voyageurs. And between the student bloggers, between our SPAD students who are doing a great job live tweeting our Voyageurs events, I'm actually using them, again, it goes back to the we trust you. We're having a test group for Snapchat. So basically, the university has an account and there's only 12 people in this test group, and we're seeing, Snapchat is huge among that demographic that we're looking at for prospective students. So we're testing it out, working out the kinks. Content-wise, what we're looking for, these personalized responses. So a lot of these platforms, you have a profile, you have a history. Okay, how can we use that to better connect with the students? A great example last week was a student got accepted to the SPAD program, and in his profile, he said he was a fervent fan of the Chicago Blackhawks. It just so happened that we were able to tweet back at him and share the great news that this year's SPAD class was just coming back from Chicago and had presented to the Chicago Blackhawks, right? So examples like that where we can use, in a heartbeat, the information we have at our fingertips about these prospective students, about their interests, and about what they're looking for at Laurentian to better communicate with them. That's where we're going with our communication. And we have so much great content. It's what we're trying to do is filter it through. It's kind of this one-to-one communication. That comes with a set of risks, right? Because as intimate as a conversation we're going to develop, you don't want it to become invasive. So again, I'll refer you to the social media guide I made where there's some rules on how not to cross those boundaries. And what I'd like to do over the summer, one of my projects is develop this bank of content, this on-demand content. A good example is here, I took a Vine with Jason who was giving a tour of the Laurentian School of Architecture. So the next time, and it doesn't have to be me, this is a bank that I want to open up to anyone in the Laurentian community on social media. They can use this, they can tap into, okay, someone asked a question about Laurentian architecture, here's a 10-second clip, and to read more, check out our website, right? So it's so personalized. We have the tools, and I want to build that capacity so that everyone can go out on social media being effective and speaking the same language that our prospective students are speaking. So I hope that gives you an idea of where we're coming from presently, where we're heading, and how you all fit into Laurentian's social media strategy. Thanks.
So any questions that you've tweeted already that you wanted to ask?